Annette Lang came to one of our events a couple of years ago called Meeting of the Minds. We got 24 of the top authors in the world to step on the stage. People like Charles Poliquin, people like Greg Roscoff, people like Paul Chek, Thomas Myers, goes on and on. Annette gets up there. I love Annette Lang, one of my favorite people in the industry. She said, I used to have a client, and we used to go on walks, and I used to let her smoke cigarettes and eat cookies as we trained. And the fitness professionals in the room went outside and started lighting torches. They were going to lynch her after she got off the stage. But let's continue on the story. This woman had been with multiple trainers, and she refused to break her smoking and her eating habit. She had no desire to train. The only problem was she was hypertensive. She had high cholesterol. She didn't move at all. She didn't drink any water at all. She was basically on her way to death. And Annette, by talking to her, found out that what motivated her was not training, but companionship. This woman also lived alone, worked in a cubicle, had no social interaction. That was probably leading to depression, which further reinforced her reservation about exercise. She said, listen, how's about this? I'll just walk with you at your pace and talk with you. And if you want to have a cigarette, I'm not going to say a word. Unconditional positive regard, non-judgment. And by the way, after our walk, I'll bring cookies, I'll give them to you. How's that? Would you just walk with me for 1 week? If after a week this doesn't work for you, I'm gone. Well, that's pretty compelling. I get cookies, a cigarette, companionship, and I'm not stuck with anything. All right, 3 sessions, 1 week. Non-committal. After the week, it was another week, another week. After a month, a woman who thought herself not capable, not interested in exercise, had to answer the question, so what type of exercise do you think people do who are healthy? I know that's not you, Mrs. Rosini, but what do you think people who are healthy do? Well, they probably eat right. Very ambiguous. They probably go to the gym, lift weights, they go for walks. So you're saying walks are exercise. Well, Mrs. Rosini, you've been exercising for 30 days. How do you see yourself as a non-exerciser? Very clever, Annette Lang. She says, listen, what are your favorite cigarettes during the day? She looked at her like she was insane. What cigarettes do you enjoy smoking the most during the day? First thing when I get up, because you can't have a cup of coffee without a cigarette. I mean, that's just logical, isn't it? Lunch, and before I go to sleep. She said, you know what if we just kept those cigarettes, and when you trained with me, we didn't smoke? And then they incrementally went a step further, a step further. You know how the story goes. 6 months later, she didn't smoke. She gave up the cookies by her own volition. She's an avid exerciser. Oh, and by the way, she's alive. And guess who her trainer is? If 6 months from now, your clients only did one thing. I had a conversation with Paul Chek about a year ago. He said, oh my God, if people don't change anything, because they never respond to threats, if all they did was hydrate, because their body's a toxic waste dump, and all you could get them to do was hydrate for a week, and then based on cognitive dissonance, have them evaluated and extend their commitment just this much, you could save a life. I reckon Paul knows what he's talking about. And that's the approach that Annette used. So if our clients don't listen to anything that we tell them to do, except one thing, and they decide what it is. So listen, what one habit could you adapt that would be in alignment with the results you want to achieve? I'm not going to tell you what to do. What do you think? And how would that habit benefit you? Next question is, well, what one thing do you think you need to stop doing? And what is that one thing costing you in your life? If we can start with one thing, one act of commission, one act of omission, that's killing them. If 6 months from now, they're doing everything we wanted them to do, but they're doing it because they decided through self-determination, do we really care at what point they listen to us? It's better than having someone who's completely compliant, and then once they blow one thing, they have an all or nothing mentality. We see that, don't we? They're doing so good for 2 weeks on their diet, and then one day a piece of chocolate cake takes advantage of them, and they go, oh, I blew it. Might as well. How many of you have seen your clients do it? How many of you have done this? I've already blown the day. I might as well get it all out of my system, and you go home and you eat anything that doesn't move. Your freaking cat starts doing laps in the house when you walk in the room. And then the next day it's Thursday, and you feel like crap about yourself. You say, well, nobody starts on a diet on Thursday. I'll start over Monday. But this weekend, I'm going to get it all out. And then next thing you know, it's New Year's.